Chapter 1, in which a stranger arrives. Teeth are delivered by post, and politeness proves useless. Westminster, 1849. So, the constable shouts over his shoulder. Paris, I hear. These are the first words he utters since we'd left Scotland Yard, where the looks I'd received were nothing short of welcoming. Wonderful! The newcomer! Give him the Piccadilly couple. Upon my summoning, I'd hoped for something challenging. A case to test the limits of body and mind and bring one of society's many monsters to some sort of justice. A difference-maker of a job. Instead, I'd been handed an assignment meant only to quell the trivial concerns of the bourgeoisie. I give a nod that he can't see through the bustling crowd. Paris, yes, Saint-Germain specifically, but my past is none of his business, nor anyone's if I've anything to say about it. This is a new beginning, and it belongs to no one but me, born anew the moment I had arrived in London the prior evening. You're young for a private investigator. It isn't quite a question, but he fires off more of them before I can answer. An attempt to unsettle me. 30s? Any family in the area? A great-great-uncle in Penzance, though he moved here from Cornwall, or so I've heard. And no, none of my own. No partner, nor children. I think that's what he's asking. What a strange way to phrase his question. I'll be 33 this autumn. Soon, then. It's actually 33 next autumn, but that does little to offset my lack of tenure, or the stubborn ghost of a beard that never quite commits to growing in. I apprenticed for a couple of years before opening my own inquiry office last May. Your mentorship must have been an impressive one, then. It's not a compliment. Not the way he means it. He shoots an incredulous glance back at me, as if he must be missing something. He's probably wondering why his commissioner handpicked me. Not to fret. Over the 2-day trip here, it's all I've pondered. My father was one of the best. A man for the people. Not a former cop nor serviceman. He painted and travelled before returning home at his parents' wishes, determined to break into a trade. So he did, and made it his life's work. The case we'd last collaborated on was the last time I saw him alive. I leave this part out, and the constable doesn't bother to ask. He pushes forward, already disinterested. A low brontide rolls across the canopy of clouds. I barely keep up with his bobbing helmet amidst the throng of top hats and bonnets as we scurry across Butcher Row. Someone coughs beside me, a wet sound that has me pressing my folded handkerchief against my face. I don't need to turn to know the woman beside me just rasped a handful of blood into her napkin. You're sick. Stay inside. It's what the doctors back home would say. According to the daily newspaper, parliamentarians remain world leaders in science and medical progress. Apparently. Has London treated you fairly? Shouts the constable. So far? I've not been in town for a day. Yet the chemical plumes from the textile mills and the lingering aroma of horse shit have already made a distinct impression in the form of a pounding headache in my forehead and jaw. From what I know of the place, this is among its fairer treatment of new arrivals. Clutching my hat, I put my head down, avoiding several other hacking residents as I pardon myself through the crowded street to catch up to him. It's my turn to ask questions. The constable hasn't prodded too much, but if I monopolise the conversation, the less opportunity he has to pick at the details of my life. Paris is all he needs to know. Is this the right way to the Piccadilly couple? I recall the map at the station. We're headed east. Isn't it behind us? Yes, but... Right, excuse us, he grumbles, before taking a sharp turn onto Gill Street, which, in comparison to the streets around the yard, is a cobblestone-veined thoroughfare of high traffic indeed. I pivot to follow him and barely dodge a carriage and tittering crowd of soot-dusted children on their lunch hour. We aren't headed to their home. I'm bringing you to the crime scene." Noticing my brows rise, he grins through his moustache. "You did say you were eager to start." I assumed it was theft. It was usually a matter of robbery with the sort of couple residing in an area like Piccadilly. I'd assumed such, considering the urgent manner in which my presence had been requested. Shaken awake by my own authorities and on a train to Calais not an hour later. Stolen pearls? A ransacked cupboard? "No pearls amiss this time." The constable comes to a halt so abruptly that I bump into him. He doesn't seem to notice, or if he does, he doesn't care. We've arrived at an unmarked door, the first on a row of brownstone establishments. To its left sits a shop boasting a variety of fine hats and silk scarves in the long window, its name spelt across the front in ostentatious lettering. Lewis and Allenby. What was stolen, then? The constable turns to me, but is interrupted by a woman's frantic cry.
"Oh, Charles, I can't bear it."
A couple emerges from the street and makes a beeline for us. The gentleman offers an outstretched hand to the constable, while his grief-stricken beloved hangs for dear life onto his opposite arm. She shoots me a filthy look. I divert my gaze and stuff my hands into my trouser pockets, already uncomfortable. What did they lose? An entire fortune?
"I can't bear to look."
The woman chokes at the door before us, then smears her face in her Charles's lapel. "Sergeant Lewis," Charles says curtly. Sergeant, then. A trained, warm tone, despite everything. The slack in his posture and lack of a morning coat tells me he's not quite a Parliament man. A magistrate, maybe? No case tucked under his arm either. Sergeant Lewis returns Charles's handshake with a tight squeeze. "Charles, Blanche, good day. This is—" Lewis frowns and tilts his head back at me, now offering me his hand. I'd rather wade through a charnel house than shake hands with a constable, or sergeant, or whatever. Pretending not to notice, I already know what he's going to ask. Yes, he did get my name back at the office. No, I don't care that he doesn't remember it, because I hadn't cared enough to ask for his. "Jacques, sir." I give Charles and Blanche a smile I hope passes as warmth. Despite the rays of sun peeking through a lapse in the clouds, a chill passes through me. Charles doesn't respond, looking most displeased as he fixes the end of his moustache. "Sergeant, a moment, if you will." Lewis nods and cocks his head at me, and I gladly excuse myself to the stoop. They don't bother speaking softly. I can hear every word. I apologize for stepping out of line, but this is preposterous. First, your commissioner refuses to help, and then, when he finally agrees to accommodate us, you bring me an amateur? My vision clouds crimson. My father was Etienne Valmont. My grandfather, Gaspard, Comte de Valmont. You insipid swine, I want to snap. The urge claws up my throat unbidden, but I swallow it. No one knows our surname here. The one that once opened hospital doors and carried enough weight to fund entire wards in France now means less than the stone beneath my shoes. A noble family of sturdy name and medical patronage. A family crest, even, in the shape of a serpent-twined blade. A clever play off of the rod of Asclepius by some ancestor with an apparent sense of humour. My father renounced it all before I was born. Then Gaspard died of a winter illness, and what little weight our surname held faded into obscurity. And here I stand, heir to a disgraced title, having wasted my brief tenure at the Faculté du Droit on absinthe and cards and women, to my grandmother's silent disappointment. Picked up my father's trade on a whim rather than a calling, and ended up shipped overseas like some sniffing dog, all to be spat upon by London's authorities and elites alike. I lift my gaze to the shop window, feigning interest in the cut of a coat or the shimmer of silk, anything to avoid the itch in my palms. I trace the grooves in the brick with my eyes, counting them to breathe through the urge to splatter Charles's innards across them. "Charles," Lewis whispers pleadingly, As we discussed yesterday, our hands are tied with other matters at the moment. Larger robberies, 2 jewellers in Hatton Garden late last week, handfuls of diamonds gone. He snaps his fingers. Just like that. There was another heist up the street last night, and the alleyway murders, which you might have read about. You think I care about diamonds? My father owns half of Portsmouth Square. Ah, yes. For nothing expresses moral urgency quite like inheriting a property in Marylebone. What about the outsourcing you mentioned? Charles throws his hands out to his sides, gesturing towards any option but me. You must help us find our daughter. There it is, the one thing more prized than a fortune. That's the thing, Lewis replies, raising his voice for me to hear. We have outsourced. Jacques has travelled here all the way from Paris. He turns to look at me. Isn't that right? Indeed, I've spent the past 36 hours on trains, a ferry, and more trains. After 3 hours of sleep, rushed to Scotland Yard on a hackney. I have, I confirm, as if my accent hasn't given it away. Rest assured, we will find your daughter. Blanche pales even further. Charles glares at Lewis, furious tears forming at the corners of his own eyes. Unfortunately, Lewis is quick to add, I haven't yet had a chance to inform Monsieur Valmont of the finer details. He arrived at the office early this morning and was so eager to start. Perfect. A foreigner who doesn't even know what he's investigating. If I may, I interject. Lewis is not about to pin this on me. I apologise if there's been a misunderstanding. You see, I'm the private investigator in charge of your case from this point on. Any details may be shared with me in confidence. At this, Charles's moustache stops quivering, and he's a little less red. A private investigator? Yes. Now, keep in mind, I don't make any arrests or prosecutions. I stride slowly to them, so as not to spook his glaring wife. Instead, I am tasked with acquiring crucial information as quickly as possible by any means necessary. With my findings and your cooperation, a decision is made on how to proceed. Sergeant Lewis here was only showing me the way since I am new to your town. Lewis has only complicated these matters as far as I'm concerned. I give the couple a consoling smile and eye the busy streets, which start to clear with the workday resuming. He was about to be on his way. Isn't that right? The 3 of them eye me in suspicion, as if Lewis didn't expect someone who knew how to do their job when his commissioner contacted my office. Precisely, Lewis finally agrees. Despite his scepticism, the relief is plain on his face. Monsieur Valmont, Mr. and Mrs. Warncliffe, good day, and best of luck. With a nod toward me and the couple, he tips his hat and disappears down the steps and into the crowd like a mongrel with its tail between his legs. Back to your daughter, I say, refocusing the discussion on what has become a belatedly urgent matter. In a missing persons case, we have a narrow window of time if we are to find her. We will be doing no such thing because she is dead as nails. Charles's murky eyes bore into mine, and I fight the urge to look down. I see. This changes things entirely. If I'd had time to find my cap in my luggage this morning, I would have removed it. How horrible. Elaborate, if you will. 6 days ago, our Alma showed the early signs of consumption. Cold, even sitting at the hearth. Nose and cheeks scarlet. She let out a cough 5 days ago that was tinged red. We've both seen enough of this plague to know it doesn't take long for things to turn for the worst. So, by early next morning, we'd brought her here. That was the last time we saw her. 4 days ago they'd seen her. Pardon, here? Yes. Charles motions towards the doorframe his wife has slumped against like a stray cat begging to be let in. Beecham's Infirmary. I step back, and for the first time since we arrived, take a good look at the doorstep. Unlike the other shops, it's nondescript and looks nothing like a sanatorium. The 2 levels stacked above the peeling door are thin, barely enough room for anything more than an office, much less a chemist. Infirmary? I'm dubious, unable to conceal my taut grimace. In there?
It's exclusive, you buffoon!
Blanche glares up at me.
This infirmary offers cures most cannot afford.
She pauses to hiccup between sobs, blowing her nose on her sleeve.
And we can most certainly afford them. Our Alma didn't deserve this. It just isn't fair.
I hate to ask you to relive this. I know it must be painful, but could you please tell me, I say gently, if you haven't seen her, what events have transpired to make you believe she's dead? Charles reaches into his coat pocket and retrieves a crumpled piece of paper, holding it out to me in his gloved hand. I accept it without question and unfurl a faded photo of a cherub-faced girl of about 10, along with 4 small objects that roll over my palm like dice. 2 of them glint in the sunlight. They aren't dice at all. Where did you... I stagger for the banister, my lip curling as I press the bundle back into Charles's expectant palm. He fishes around and holds a single tooth up, the roots still stained red. The courier delivered this that same evening. You're sure they're hers? Yes, those are her amalgam fillings. Charles then pockets his grim findings and brandishes a piece of folded parchment at me, which I accept as a welcome distraction. Mr. and Mrs. Warncliffe, we sincerely regret to inform you of your dearest Alma's passing. Her demise was unforeseen, as her condition worsened rapidly the day of her death. Here are her available remains, the rest of which have been donated to the noble cause of scientific research. Our condolences and prayers are with you, your humble servant, A. Beecham. I can barely reread the letter before Charles snatches it back, cradling it to his chest as if it is the last tangible memory of her, save the teeth. I take a moment to recompose myself as they both stare expectantly at me. Detective work is a curious venture. It requires striking the perfect balance between indifference and concern, compassion and clinical poise. In this instance, my unadulterated empathy pushes me to dig deeper. And you don't believe this is what happened to her? They exchange glances.
We don't know what to believe,
Replies Blanche. You showed this to the police, and they didn't believe you.
They grew unconcerned after reading the letter.
Bastards. They didn't have a missing girl to find alive. Have you engaged with the infirmary since? Another roll of thunder grinds through the darkening clouds. We've tried, says Charles. Apparently, they don't let anyone who's not of poor health pass the intake. What time was it delivered? Your letter, the day she was pronounced dead?
A little past 6.
Blanche answers brusquely. And which one of you received it?
I did, but we didn't know of its contents until Charles opened it.
Do you usually retrieve the evening mail, Mrs. Warncliffe? It is customary, especially in the evenings, for the husband to answer the door. Couriers, after all, come and go at all hours, though I'm under the impression the residents of Piccadilly are afforded prime mail hours, if not the earliest.
Not usually,
Blanche replies, face flushing.
but Charles was out.
Does he normally stay out past... I trail off, glancing between them both. The shadows beneath their eyes are suddenly more noticeable. Charles steps forward to place himself between me and his wife, and Blanche is now completely removed from our exchange. Trembling, she cups her hand against the breeze to light the pipe she's procured from God knows where. I run my hand over my face. They aren't suspects. Just a pair of exhausted parents in dire need of sleep and some answers. 2 individuals thrust into the sudden misfortune of loss, just as I've been. My humblest apologies. As if on cue, a raindrop grazes my knuckle. I've forgotten my place. You dare question us? You should be in there! Charles jabs a finger toward the infirmary door before his hands go to his hair. He turns to Blanche, no longer addressing me. After all of the funds my parents poured into this city, this is what we get in return. A juvenile detective. Frustration surges through me at his words, at my overestimating my own ability and thinking I could do this a month after my father's demise. Not when I'd received no answers myself. Not when I'd escaped by the hair of my teeth. Charles is an angry father. He has every right to be. But barging outright into Beecham's infirmary would prove useless. Just what was I supposed to ask? Show me the Warncliffe girl's corpse? And why the fuck are her teeth missing? I could try, but it was likely they'd require the kind of warrant that only the department could give me, and not without pushback. This investigation required stealth, not the usual bedlam of the yard's constables. The tinny ring of a bell breaks the silence. Behind Charles, a carriage is parked. A tissue-clutching older woman and her coach driver have made their way into the shop next door. Right, then. We'll start with the neighbour. Monsieur Warncliffe. I tip my proverbial hat and begin retreating. Madame Warncliffe, I'll be commencing my investigation immediately. Where do you think you're going? Charles snarls as I step back onto the sidewalk, barely dodging a man and his bumbling beagle. The infirmary is in there! I wave my hands and cup my ears, pretend I can't hear him, then shrug. What can I say? English is not my first language. I'll be in touch within 24 hours. You can be sure of it. Expect to hear from myself or Lewis.